Rishi Sunak has managed to embarrassingly make another U-turn, this time on tax cuts, which means that the whole campaign continues to fall apart. Hello everybody, welcome to the first video of the day. It hasn't been an easy ride, it hasn't been in the last couple of days, yesterday and today especially, for both campaigns, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. They haven't had an easy time. Last night, we had Rishi Sunak making a big U-turn again on tax cuts, which we're going to get into. And this morning, we had 2-3 hours of chaos for Liz Truss's campaign team as they proposed a regional pay review for the public sector and civil servants. And then they got attacked by the Labour Party, the trade unions, and Rishi Sunak. Everybody went hand in hand until Liz Truss had to completely ditch their policy. But first, let's talk about Rishi Sunak. What's going on? Because he stood on a platform of, I'm not going to give fairy tale promises and free lollipops and, well, for the conservative version of it, which will be tax cuts and shrinking the size of the state. Nope, it's all gone because he's realised that Liz Truss's team are doing well and that the members of the Tory party want the size of the state to get smaller. They want tax cuts. They want actual sound money policy when it comes to financial aspects of the country and economic policies in general. So they've come out to say, well, I'm now going to promise to slash the basic rate of income tax from 20% to 16% if he becomes Prime Minister. And then said, well, this will be done by the end of next Parliament. The cost will be £18 billion. And you know how he's going to pay for it? Well, he's going to grow the economy and he's going to basically use the extra revenue. Just reminds us of, it will just grow. That's just easy, isn't it? I had no idea how easy it would be. Considering that when he started his leadership campaign, the whole platform was to grow the economy anyway. So the extra revenue is going to come anyway because he's so good, he's so competent. As Chancellor, he was very good, right? Yeah, sure, no. So that was always going to happen. The extra revenue was always going to come. So how come he found free money? So he was already there. Why didn't he promise the tax cuts weeks ago? That's the problem that we have with the politicians who are not really honest or genuine when it comes to their own agenda. Now, this reminds us of what we initially said, because he was refusing to match Liz Truss on tax cuts only days ago, really. So it's not really anything new. They all knew what the main platforms were going to be. That was the biggest difference between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. And now we end up with this. That's what we have to expose. The wishy-washy U-turns. We have to expose hypocrisy of politicians. That's why this channel exists. And that's what we are going to continue to do this. And in the next video, actually, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back in half an hour, talk about what we reported last week, which was the innocent army veteran who was arrested for simply posting on social media. The woke police arrested him, and we now have an update on that. Don't forget to get your merchandise. The link is in the description to fight against the WEF's Build Back Better. Get your own British version of Build Back Britain. I always forget how to say that. The link is in the description. On my TC, and we are the media. Right, welcome back to the show, everyone. Last week, we reported a story that went viral on social media. An innocent veteran was arrested by the woke police of the United Kingdom for simply posting on Facebook. Somebody complained that their feelings were hurt, and because of that, he was taken away. Now, luckily, Lawrence Fox and Harry Miller, who's an ex-copper, they were there, and they filmed it. And they exposed what was happening, the event. Harry Miller was also taken by the police, but the reality was that the whole thing went viral, and everybody kicked off. There was a backlash. Now, the police commissioner have come out and the whole of the organization to criticize their own woke police officers for saying, well, this shouldn't have been done. Now, this is actually thanks to the Bad Law Project, backed up by Lawrence Fox and Harry Miller and those guys who recently launched it. And this is obviously their campaign is clearly going successful, because this is the backlash that we had from the police commissioner. This is the video update from Lawrence Fox.
The following is a statement from the PCC of Hampshire Police, Donna Jones. I'm aware of the video published on Twitter which shows the arrest of 2 men in Hampshire yesterday, one for malicious communications and one for obstruction of a police officer. I've taken this issue up with the constabulary today and have been advised officers made the arrests following a complaint from a member of the public of an alleged hate crime. It follows a post on social media of progress pride flags in the shape of... My bad. I am concerned about both the proportionality and necessity of the police's response to this incident. When incidents on social media receive not one but 2 visits from police officers, but burglaries and non-domestic break-ins don't always get a police response, something is wrong. Yeah, it really is. As Police Commissioner, I am committed to ensuring Hampshire Constabulary serves the public as the majority of people would expect. It appears on this occasion this has not happened. This incident has highlighted a very topical issue which Hampshire Constabulary and other police forces need to learn from. In order to support this, I will be writing to the College of Policing to make them aware of the incident and encourage greater clarification on the guidance in order to ensure that police forces can respond more appropriately in future. That, ladies and gentlemen, is people power and bravery and standing up. And huge congratulations to the gentleman who got in touch with the Bad Law Project. And this is a message to all police forces across the country. If you're going to try and interfere with good, ordinary citizens' lives in this country, the Bad Law Project are coming for you.
Yes, so this is actually spot on. We have a big problem, the root of the problem, which is the policies that comes from the Home Office and then also the commanders who implement and all enforce those guidelines. But let's talk about Hampshire, because we talk about the police commissioner and the officers there. You know, maybe they could spend more time focusing on real problems, considering that when it comes to burglary in Hampshire, 8,000 incidents were reported. 8,000 have been reported, and in Hampshire, of all places as well. It's not like Luton or Birmingham or even Lewisham, where I'm actually from. And these problems need to be addressed. Go after the real criminals and find out what's going on. Keep us safe. I don't care if you want to protect my feelings. My feelings don't need to be protected. My physical body needs to be protected. My property, my home, that needs to be protected. Not this nonsense. And this, again, we have to always talk about these things. Otherwise, nobody will be covering them. Now, we're going to come back in half an hour. We're going to talk about Dido Harding. Do you remember Dido Harding, who was appointed by Matt Hancock during the lockdown to lead the lockdown projects? And we're going to come back and talk about that in half an hour. And don't forget to get your merchandise. Build Back Britain. Their link is in the description. My Tousi and we are the media. Alright, I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking a lot about Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss and how it hasn't been an easy couple of days for their campaigns, but also Matt Hancock. Do you remember Matt Hancock? The health secretary who had to leave in disgrace because of his personal scandals, but generally speaking, he should have been punished for his policy decisions in that job and in that department. But one of the things they did during the lockdown was he hired Dido Harding, who is the wife of one of the Tory MPs, but she was also the head of Talk, which she was the head when there were a lot of scandals and crises in that company. They hired her for the government to head up all the lockdown projects, the test and trace, and all the restrictions to find out how we can use technology to control the public in the name of public health. Now, there was a problem with it. A lot of the contracts that happened back then, or with the private sector, a lot of dodgy contracts, a lot of the text messages with the neighbor saying, well, I know you through someone else, so I'm going to hire you. And there was a backlash because a lot of people said, well, you can't just do that. You broke the rules of competition and, generally speaking, equality. You have to go through the proper process to hire someone. Now, 2 judges in the UK court have come out to condemn Matt Hancock's decision to also hire Dido Harding. So a couple of judges have found that the health secretary at the time, Matt Hancock, did not comply with public sector equality duties in government's decision to appoint Dido Harding as the interim chair of the National Institute for Health Protection. This was back in August 2020. And of course, also Coop, who was the director of testing for NHS Test and Trace. Well, I don't understand why in this article they say track and trace, but that's for Royal Mail. It's test and trace in September 2020. And they basically said you can't just randomly hire people. You can't do the fast track. The same problem that they have with the private sector contracts or the dodgy contracts. Same thing has clearly happened with the recruitment of Dido Harding and Coop. Now, on the one hand, they say you kind of broke the rules, but there's no evidence of if someone like her didn't actually deserve it. So Matt Hancock has decided to use that as an excuse. So his comeback, his response to this finding is the court judgment also states that the evidence provides no support at all for the allegation that Dido Harding secured senior positions on the basis of personal or political connections in government. It's not rocket science. It's not easy to find actual written evidence unless there was some sort of text message or an email saying that I'm putting it in writing that I'm hiring you because your husband is a Tory MP, for example, or we've known you from somewhere before. It's difficult to prove that unless you have something in writing, but everybody knows that you did a fast track. That's the problem. And even if she technically deserves some merit, you still did a fast track. If you had gone through the proper process, then it would have been better. Now, some people said, especially when it came to the private sector contracts, saying, well, they had to rush it. They didn't have enough time. Well, that exposes the problem with the system, isn't it? That, these things haven't been prepared in the past. You need to have things in place just in case, and you don't really do it in time, and then you rush it, then you do fast track, then you do dodgy contracts, and chaos happens. That's the problem. That's what we have to expose this. Now, we are going to come back in a half an hour and tell you more about Rishi Sunak's overreaction to the England's women's team winning the Euro 2022. So don't forget to get your merchandise bill back, Britain. The link is in the description. I'm Tousi, and we are the media. One of the things I really hate when it comes to politics is politicians jumping on weird bandwagons. And it happens every single time there's an issue, like a pop culture issue or sport, or something happens in a corner of the world, but then on Twitter it's trending. This time is Rishi Sunak jumping on a football bandwagon because England beat Germany a couple of days ago in the Euro final at Wembley, and everybody celebrated. Everybody was like, watching it. Some people didn't watch it because some people don't watch women's football, and some people turned it into some sort of culture battle as usual. Both sides. It was absolutely crazy and unnecessary. Rishi Sunak, on the other hand, decided to release do a press release, immediate press release, ready for Rishi. The last paragraph, so it was about, congratulations, well done England, the Lionesses, blah blah blah. The last bit said, Rishi Sunak will launch a review of women's football immediately as recommended in the Crouch review. So we need an immediate inquiry into football just because England beat Germany. Wow. Absolutely wow. The problem here is that this guy, he also tweeted while he was watching the game. He was sitting in some sort of pub, I guess, while Liz Truss was actually in the stadium sitting next to Prince William. The contrast was absolutely brilliant. But that reaction, I'm just going to guess. Rishi Sunak has probably never watched women's football in the past, ever. He was way too excited. It's a try-hard photo for his campaign. It's clearly just for the campaign, saying, yeah, winning. Yeah, do you know what football is? On the other hand, I'm not even the biggest supporter of Boris Johnson's government and policies, but they PR stunts is fine. They happen. You take pictures, you post on social media. That's just what politicians do and celebrities. I prefer this. Boris Johnson sitting in his tiny flat with his kids watching football. Again, it's still PR. It's still the same thing. It's for publicity. But that, and then launching a review. The problem here, if you really cared about launching reviews, immediate investigations, there are a lot of other issues they could do. These are some of the reactions we had to that press release on Twitter. What about a review on the replacement of British people and British culture, according to JW95? We had Wendy Wilson saying, what do you expect? Julia Hartley-Brewer asked him 7 times recently to define what a woman was, and he wouldn't answer. So yes, somehow he now knows what women's football is. The Power of 1888 said, but not vivid. Although, that's the C word. The grooming gangs. Well, talk about bandwagon politics. That's a key point. There are issues around the country still happening. All these scandals with grooming cover-ups. If you want to launch an immediate inquiry, Rishi Sunak, maybe you could start with those areas. Maybe you could actually finally listen to people like Tommy Robinson and the others who, for years and years, tried to speak out, and you guys shut them down, and then never allowed us. And I've been saying this for the past 10 years now, about 9-10 years I've been saying about this issue, and nobody listened until now. Somehow, some of the media outlets are talking about it sometimes, but we need an actual action to against these scandals. If you're going to do it, then fine. Then you can also do an inquiry into your women's football if you really want to. But don't jump on the bandwagon of the lionesses. It's embarrassing. We're going to come back in half an hour. We're going to tell you about the SNP's new policy against women and those who say women are women. So it's about self-ID. So we're going to come back and talk about that in half an hour. Don't forget to get your Build Back Britain merchandise on my TC, and we are the media. Right, welcome back to the show. In case you didn't know, the SNP minions have officially lost their minds. Now, you might say they lost their minds ages ago, but this is actually crossing the line. They are not just going against common sense, against Britain, against science. Now they're going against their own members. They have a new policy. Nicola Sturgeon, her oppressive policies is not just against Scottish people. It's not just anti-English people. It's also against her own SNP members who say a woman is a woman. Yes, this is the exclusive that came out yesterday. The SNP as a party, they're looking at a potential new code of conduct. Oh, that could see a lot of activists and feminists and basically people who believe that a woman is a woman. It could be banned from their party and from the party conference and from the potential future Indie Ref 2, the next referendum that they're going to have. Well, good luck with that, Nicola. Now, if the motion is passed, anyone who believes that, again, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, will be excluded in the party's new push for independence. So, one, it's hilarious because the left always end up eating itself. And we always say, most of the time, we don't even have to say anything. You just have to sit back and watch them destroy themselves. Sometimes you have to, in the name of common sense and some good people, you need to speak out because there will be some ordinary people who just been brainwashed to support the SNP, but they can actually be withdrawn from that chaos. Now, these people, they're going after these guys. I mean, until yesterday, these feminists have been supporting you. These feminists have been supporting the liberal left-wing agenda. People like J.K. Rowling, who were donating against the Tory party and against Brexit. She hated the whole thing. And now it's the right-wingers who are supporting the feminists like J.K. Rowling against the nutters of the completely hard left, the wokeists or whatever you want to call them, woke tards. I don't know. I wonder if this video is going to get demonetized or blocked, but wish me luck. It's fine. Now they come out, the SNPHQ, to defend the policy at the conference that's going to come up. And because they might ban a number of them, saying that, well, this policy was actually built on the principles of freedom, tolerance, equality, the protection of individual and community rights, and the rejection of prejudice and discrimination in any form. Freedom, individual liberty, equality, fairness, tolerance. Are you kidding me with that? I mean, do I have to say anything at this point? I mean, all we need to do is just share this video with everybody, especially if you know anybody in Scotland, because the mainstream media in the UK, which means England, they're not talking about any of this. Where was the last time we saw? I mean, I saw one person on Talk TV, one of the presenters talking about it. But I'm talking about from the Times and Telegraph to BBC and Sky and Channel 4, ITV. We need to talk about this because if you want to protect Britain and British values, you need to talk about those, the enemy within. I know it's controversial to say, but I'm going to say it, enemy within. And we have to deal with them. That's why we have launched our, see, where's it, here and here. There we go. Our new campaign, grassroots campaign, Build Back Britain. Because it's the only way we can actually fight back. And the merchandise, obviously, the link is in the description. But we are going to introduce the new upcoming dates to our nationwide tour around the country and we are going to go around. We're going to go to Cardiff. We're going to go to Manchester. We're going to go to Scotland as well to actually start something from the grassroots, because we can't just be dependent on the political parties and politicians to be our saviors. If you agree with me, click on the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm Tousi, and we are the media. Once again, the Home Secretary Priti Patel has surrendered to Emmanuel Macron's government by giving them even more money so that they could pretend to be using it to stop the small boats and illegal migrants. How many times do we have to go over this, guys? How many days, how many weeks and months? This whole thing that got escalated in 2020, in the summer of 2020, Nigel Farage had to go to Dover and Kent to film the small boats. This problem was happening before anyway, but the small boats, it got bigger in 2020. And in November 2020, Priti Patel signed a contract, an agreement with France, gave them a lot of money, and then decided to ask them to help. They didn't help. Then once again, a few months later, they gave them more money. Didn't really happen. And now, Priti Patel is going to give the French even more money, millions more, to help them with the migrant crossing. Guess how much we've spent so far? £80 million, over £80 million at least. It's been with a two chunk of payments, but of course in between as well. This is a problem that needs to be resolved. Now, I actually agree that if you want to fix the problem, you can't come up with all these different policies and everything else, but you do need France to get their act together. Technically, you do. But clearly, they're not listening to us. Clearly, they're just taking our money and they're not doing anything about it. Yet the Home Office has said that the cash that they're giving to France is a necessity to stop more boats leaving the French shores, and the deal would be driven by results. The deal would be driven by results. So if that's the case, does that mean that if they don't really do it, are we going to ask for the money back, or are we just going to be ignored? I mean, that's the main point, isn't it? Now, we've had a lot of backlash. We had Tim Lawton, the Tory MP, has been very outspoken about this, coming out to say that until the French intercept the gangs and then detain them, this will not solve the problem. It's just an extra cost to the taxpayer. Now, this was Tim Lawton. We even had Natalie Elphicke, who's actually the local MP in that area, saying France has a moral obligation to protect vulnerable people. They should not need to be paid to do their duty. This is absolutely spot on from Natalie, because why do they need more money? Why do they even need money to do something? Because if they really care about these people who are on boats and their lives at risk as well, let alone when they get here, they create problems for us and for even legal migrants who have to wait in a waiting list for years to get into the country. They create problems for everybody. But they're still vulnerable people, as in when they're on the boats and in English Channel, their lives are at risk. But of course, it's their choice. They paid their smugglers, and the smugglers put them on the boats. But the French government and the UK government, politicians pretend that they care about their well-being. So if you do, Emmanuel Macron, then why not protect them, right? I'm going to use this game against himself. But clearly they don't. If Priti Patel actually does manage to sign this agreement and it doesn't work again, then they have to respond to the outrage they're going to get from the British public. Now, my only hope is that Liz Truss becomes, when Liz Truss becomes leader and prime minister, then she makes some big changes in the Home Office. I think Priti Patel needs to go. Don't you think? Yeah, I think she needs to go. And we have to talk about all this chaos. But I've got a new update for you guys, by the way. Obviously, since the launch of, Build Back Britain campaign with the new merchandise, I've received a couple of photos on it's Twitter from our members who've been wearing them. And I love these photos. We've got the blue t-shirt, Build Back Britain, and we've got the black one with the white font as well. Thank you guys for sending your photos. If you actually have received your Build Back Britain merchandise, do me a favor, take a picture, take a selfie, fun selfie, and my Twitter DMs are open. You can go on, or Getter as well. Getter or Twitter, same username, MyTousi, one word. Go on Twitter or Getter, send me your pictures, your selfies, and I will, if you want me to, show your pictures on this channel. Definitely do that. And for those of you who haven't got your merchandise yet, go in the link, check out the link in the description and get your Build Back Britain merchandise today. I'm not really good at marketing and sales. I need someone else to actually do the promo because I can't do it. But we are going to come back. We're going to tell you more about all these problems. Subscribe to the channel. I'm Tousi, and we are the media. On this channel, we are all about questioning everything and everyone, including ourselves, up to a point where sometimes I upset some people on our own side. It's not just when I attack the left, but I've criticized Boris Johnson's policies, and some Boris fans criticized me. I've criticized both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, but I am doing it because we need to promote conservative values. We need to make sure that we hold them to account. And this leadership election is all about the battle of ideas at this point. Liz Truss is we're trying hard to prove her conservative credentials, especially considering that she used to be a Lib Dem member when she was younger. Now, some of the things that are a priority for me personally is government overreach, the size of the state when it comes to nanny state, when it comes to overreach on the public health policies like lockdown and restrictions, but also just draining the swamp of the establishment and overall and all these the woke culture battles that continues to take over. Now, Liz Truss, yesterday, last night, kind of impressed me on all these issues. She covered all of them. And she said, for example, that she's announcing that she will scrap the diversity and inclusion jobs in Whitehall, making sure the civil service officials actually start to focus on delivery. Now, we have heard this before from Boris Johnson's government, from Sajid Javid. Some of it was done. Not all of it was done. We're still seeing police cars going around with the rainbow and unicorns all over them. We're still seeing some diversity trainings in Whitehall. So if she does it, then perfect. But I'll believe it when I see it. So far, I'm not going to be completely rejecting it. So I'm going to be supportive until if she doesn't do it, then we will completely criticize the system as usual. Liz Truss has also come out to say she will stop the junk food tax and the nanny state. This is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the crucial things and one of the most disappointing things that I saw in Boris Johnson and his government, because he stood on a platform in 2019 to become Tory party leader, and he mentioned this. Now, it makes sense because if you look back, and there are footages actually on this channel as well, when Boris Johnson was speaking out against the nanny state at the time, the reason that those promises were never actually achieved or delivered was because they were never actually promises. I remember there was, again, it's on the channel, you can find it. He was interviewed once when he was a Tory candidate in 2019, and he didn't actually give a proper policy. He just said, "Oh yeah, I don't like this the nanny state on junk food tax and all this stuff. It's nonsensical. We should look into it." But there was no detailed policy. So technically speaking, there was never a proper promise. It was just wishy-washy rhetoric that made a lot of people to fall for it. I fell for it, right? So we all did. But when it comes to lockdown, for example, Liz Truss was asked whether she actually agreed with the whole of the system and whether she would do it again. This is what she said.
Can I just ask you if you would ever authorise another lockdown?
No, I wouldn't.
Do you regret any of your support for the 3 lockdowns within government? Because, of course, there's been many policy areas that you were part of the government at, the national insurance rise, for example, which you've now come out against. So, privately, do you think lockdown was a bad idea?
Firstly, that was a great answer. No. I wouldn't do it, in the words of Margaret Thatcher. But the question is also very important. This is what she had to say.
Every single chance I was given the opportunity to express a view, I was on the favour of doing less rather than more on lockdowns and opening up the economy earlier. The fact is I wasn't part of the key COVID committee. I was the International Trade Secretary. I was spending my time trying to get all these trade deals done. I wasn't really a core part of that COVID decision-making.
I mean, that's fair enough. But again, all this stuff is finally coming out over the last few months about the backlash, about all the criticisms, and we're still waiting for a proper inquiry into the whole thing. So hopefully someone could push someone, Liz Truss, to actually do it as the new leader and prime minister. But she was again also standing up against the battle of the woke culture and all this culture nonsense and everything else that's been infiltrated by the Marxists and the hard left, and it's nothing new. They've been planning this since the 50s and 60s onwards. They infiltrated all the areas. And again, she said, well, it's time to actually stop that, and it's time to stand up for the values of Britain.
But as well as freedom and democracy abroad, we need it here at home. And I'm a straight-talking Yorkshire woman. I know a woman is a woman. You know, you might laugh, but that's become a controversial statement in some parts of Britain today. I will protect single-sex spaces, such as domestic violence shelter, and I will make sure that we stand up for the United Kingdom, and we're proud of our history. Not just standing up for it overseas, but also rejecting the naysayers and declinists who say that our country's best days are behind us. They're not. Our best days are in front of it, and that is what I will deliver as your Prime Minister.
I mean, this is what we needed. Again, we're not going to just completely go with blind faith, and we have to question everything as usual. We will believe it when we see it. But we needed some sort of positivity. We needed some sort of optimism at this point. And the two things that I really enjoyed what she said, one was about being proud of our history, our heritage, because there's a chunk of people in society who want to erase British history, and we need to stand up against it. And the whole concept of it's embarrassing how it's become a controversial topic, an issue, to say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. How is that controversial? What is going on in 2022? You know, if you were to ask, people from decades ago, what do you think is going to happen in the future? We say, well, there have been actual interviews about that from decades ago. A lot of kids were saying, and they were rightly so, predicting that the technology will take over and society will become slightly less human. But they wouldn't have thought that we would still be stuck in these debates. They probably would have thought that we would also be prosperous and more educated and more civilized. Now, not if you go to Portland or New York or San Francisco or parts of London, for that matter, it's not really that safe or civilized. But it is what it is when you open the door to multiculturalism and mass migration and completely destroy your own identity as a country. We have to fight against that, we are doing it on this channel with your support. So thanks again for all the support, all the likes and comments. Subscribe to the channel. I'm Tousi and we are the media.